This is Abe Friedtanzer from cinemadailyus.com, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Luke Gilford about his film National Anthem. How are you, Luke?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of seeing this film, and then I read more about it after I saw it. I went into it knowing nothing about it, which is a question I'll ask you later about whether you advise that. But I'm curious about how this whole photography series that inspired this film got started.
Well, my father, it started with my family. My dad was in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. So I grew up in Colorado, and all my earliest memories were at rodeos. And there's just such a magnetism to the rodeo, and it brings this sort of mythological side of America out into the open air, and it's just a wash for the senses. There's the denim and dirt and animals and courtship and pastel landscapes, and I just loved it as a kid. I was so drawn to it, but as I grew older, I came to understand just how homophobic and patriarchal the mainstream rodeo can be. So naturally I kind of stayed away, but then in like 2016 I discovered that there's a subculture within the rodeo circuit, known as the IGRA, the International Gay Rodeo Association, which is welcomes anyone on the LGBTQIA spectrum, even allies and supporters, and it really was the first time I felt that kind of electric charge of belonging, and it was super inspiring to me to see people, cowboys, like real cowboys and cowgirls, who are also living their truth and not afraid to be who they are. And so I slowly became part of the community and was taking portraits of everyone I met along the way and sharing stories. There was so much of a connection through storytelling, and so it just very much organically led. It felt like there was more to tell beyond the book and the photo series, and so I wanted to tell more of my story, as well as these stories that felt very universal, that I was encountering so much about heartbreak and love and loss and belonging and nature. So it was a very, very organic process.
Well, the characters that we meet in the film really are very open and trusting. Is that the experience you also had in this process?
Absolutely. I mean, I think these landscapes can be very tough, and often Westerns are, very violent, but there is a gentleness and a softness to a lot of the folks that I met along the way. And I think that was something really beautiful that I wanted to share, that is a possibility, and that we can have a Western that's not based around violence. And to me, this really is kind of a reinvention of the classic American cowboy archetype, which has so long been those values around virility and violence and dominance. And I wanted to offer up this more nuanced and modern version, which is, a cowboy who's not afraid to love and to be vulnerable, and is not afraid to try riding a bull and try drag in the same story. And to me, I think that's really who we are as people. We aren't just about these labels and boxes that cannot contain who we really are. And so much of the world now is trying to just, it's like Republican versus Democrat, middle America versus coastal elite. And when you're really out there in these places, it's so much more complex than that.
Of course. What challenges did you find in adapting this into a film?
Challenges. I mean, I think to me, I really value films that are not so much about like tons and tons of dialogue. I think real life is so much more about the unsaid and the space between what we say and what we mean, or what we don't say at all. And I think that's one of the great gifts that photography gave me, was expressing so much emotion through a single frame, and the faces tell stories. And so I really wanted to tell, like, to have a proper narrative and a proper arc, but without so much traditional, like, tons of dialogue and tons of plot. And it was a huge goal for me to peel back so many of the cliches for a coming of age film, for love story, for queer stories. There's so many cliches in all of those. And so that was a big challenge for me, was to just like constantly be trying to move away from cliche and to reveal deeper truths. And for then the actors and our other collaborators to find connections to those more universal truths of family, belonging, chosen family, heartbreak, loss, all those things. And so then it becomes less a story about me and more of a story about all of us.
Is Dylan a stand-in for you in this story?
Dylan's a stand-in for all of us.
I like that answer. So your cast really is terrific. How did you go about finding Charlie and Eve specifically?
That was also a very beautiful process, where I actually met Charlie by photographing him right around the time that I started writing the script in like 2018. He was doing press for one of his many incredible films, and it was a portfolio of young actors, and he was last that day, and just immediately I was so struck by him. And he totally disarmed me with his sensitivity and empathy and just deep soulfulness. And so it was almost uncanny too, because in the shoot he was wearing a Western shirt in the shoot. And so in my mind I was like, this is Dylan. But it also felt like such a distant dream. Like I had just started writing, and it was like, here's this amazing actor, like that will never happen. But I couldn't help but keep him in mind as I wrote from there. And then when I found my producers, they had actually just worked with him on a film, and they absolutely adored him. And so I begged them, like, please share this with him. And they did, and he read it, and he just called me directly, and we talked for hours just about the emotions and the heart and soul of the film. And he really connected deeply to Dylan and to the story. So it was just a total dream come true there. And it felt like, you know the actors chose the movie more than we chose the actors. They really, everyone kind of came to it in that organic way. Eve as well. Zachary Drucker is a dear friend of mine, and she's a producer on the film. And she knew Eve and thought that she was immensely talented and promising and enigmatic, and so many of the things that we wanted Sky to embody. And so again, as soon as I met Eve, it was like, that is Sky.
I think another standout in the film is definitely Mason Alexander Park. Can you talk about that casting?
That was a very, very, very difficult one, because again, it was about moving against the cliches. And with drag queens specifically, there's just so much cliche around the representation of drag queens and non-binary people. And so I really wanted a very soulful person, and often it's very camp. And so we auditioned so many different drag queens, and a lot of them just really didn't understand the character. And so it was a long process. But Joseph Middleton, who was our casting director, and incredible, he found Mason was playing Hedwig on Broadway. And so Joseph found them through that, and they sent in a tape, and it was again just this immediate, like, electric shock feeling of, this is Carrie.
No, it's wonderful. It's really a wonderful ensemble. And I'm curious about the title. I think it's perfect, but I'm curious when you came up with it.
Well, why do you think it's perfect?
Because I just the idea when I asked you, is Dylan based on you? It's based on everybody. The idea that this is sort of the soul of the country, even though we sometimes have trouble seeing it, and there's also, of course, a very powerful national anthem scene in the film for those who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a portrait of America, and as a symbol of hope and freedom, even for those who are often excluded from that narrative. It's about them taking that power back, reclaiming it, and saying, no, this is my country too, and I can be whatever I want to be. And there's so much beauty and power and resilience in that. And I think that it is, that is what this country should be based on. And this community, these people really remind me of that promise, that they bring back that aura of promise that America is supposed to have, but often feels like a myth.
And similarly, I do think South by Southwest is a fantastic, launching place for this film. It feels like it has really the right vibe and the right energy, and especially a place in a typically conservative state where it's a much more liberal and sort of open-minded city. How do you feel about starting off there with the
Oh,
film?
I'm so excited. It's just such a dream. I love Texas. So much of the book and the story has come out of it. I do think that it's particularly poignant right now when over 70 anti-LGBTQIA bills have come through the legislative system in Texas just this year alone. So it's a very life or death situation right now in some of these places, and I think it's particularly important right now for people to be humanizing this community, which is often dehumanized. So I hope that people are able to see themselves in these characters, and to humanize, and to love, and walk away with more compassion.
And we're speaking, of course, before the premiere at South by Southwest, but have you had a chance to show it to any of the people who inspired characters in the film?
A couple, yeah, but most of them will be seeing it for the first time, and I'm so excited for that. It's been, a whirlwind getting it done in time. So it's, we just finished it. So I'm very excited to share it with the world, and it's going to be a very surreal experience.
Do you have any important takeaways from directing your first feature? Anything that surprised you about the process?
Any important takeaways? I mean, the filmmaking just requires so much perseverance and tenacity. And so I would say, don't give up. Just, this took me many years. And I don't have a formal film education. I didn't go to film school, but I have such a love of film and cinema, and always dreamed of, this day coming. And so I had to fight for it. And I think that it's possible, anything's possible, and I hope the film even shows that like through love and through really putting ourselves out there, that beautiful things can happen. So
I agree. And do you think you want to do this again, make another film?
I'm already doing it, baby.
What can you tell me about that?
I can't really speak too much on it right now, but I would love to, soon. But I'm deep in it already.
That's wonderful. Well, for more great conversations like this, you can subscribe to the Cinema Daily US YouTube channel and make sure to check out National Anthem at South by Southwest. Thank you so much, Luke. It was great to meet you and to hear about your background a bit.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you.